Have you ever been late to class? What about when you're rushing to get somewhere and you trip in front of everyone? You're mortified. Your face is burning. But then you look up and see that no one even noticed. Nobody cares. They have their own stuff to worry about. And it wasn't actually that big of a deal, but still, it feels embarrassing. Like a weight has been lifted. So who do you think's experiencing the spotlight effect? Pause the video here if you want to make a guess. In psychology, the spotlight effect refers to our tendency to overestimate how much other people notice our appearance, behavior, and performance. In other words, we all have an imaginary spotlight shining on us, and we think everyone around us is taking notes. According to a survey of 174 college students, over half of them reported experiencing the spotlight effect at least once in the previous week. This could be because the world is a more crowded and interconnected place than ever before. We might feel like there are more eyes on us, so it makes sense that more of us are feeling this spotlight effect. So let's break down what it is, why it happens, and some famous experiments that prove it. When we think we're under the spotlight, we tend to overestimate how much other people pay attention to us. Let's take the example of tripping in public again. If you were the one who tripped, you would probably think everyone was staring at you. But if you were the one who witnessed it, you would only take a quick glance and then move on. After all, you have your own life to pay attention to. Our brains automatically draw this conclusion for us. We're focused on ourselves, not you. That's called egocentric bias. The spotlight effect is closely related to something called spotlight self-consciousness. This is when you feel like there's a spotlight shining on you, like you're being watched and evaluated by others. You might become hyper-aware of your appearance or worry about making a fool out of yourself. But the good news is, most people aren't paying that much attention to you. They're too busy worrying about themselves. A simple way to remember this is to imagine a spotlight shining on you. Then ask yourself, would other people really be paying that much attention to me right now? Probably not. Most people are more interested in themselves than in you. That's called egocentric bias. When we think we're under the spotlight, we tend to overestimate how much other people pay attention to us. So why does the spotlight effect happen? Why are we always worried about what other people think? Well, it could have to do with our evolutionary past. Humans are social creatures who rely on others for survival. Being accepted by the group meant having access to resources, food, shelter, mates, and allies. And being rejected by the group meant being vulnerable and alone. So, throughout history, we've evolved to be very attuned to the opinions of others. In fact, research shows that we process other people's opinions faster than we process our own sensory information. We can recognize angry facial expressions much faster than we can recognize a pleasant facial expression. We can also recognize fearful facial expressions much faster than we can recognize happy ones. This means that if someone gives you a nasty look, you'll probably take it personally and assume it's about you, whether it is or not. And that's exactly what the spotlight effect is. It's assuming that everyone is paying attention to you when they're really not. We don't really know why this happens, but one possibility is that it has to do with our limbic system, which is the part of our brain that processes emotions. It's possible that our limbic system has evolved to be more sensitive to negative information, like a nasty look from someone else, because being rejected by the group could mean death. In this case, natural selection would favor those who quickly recognized signs of rejection and took steps to avoid being left out. Another reason why we experience the spotlight effect is that we tend to focus on ourselves, especially when we're doing something new or difficult. For example, let's say you're giving a presentation in front of a class. You're at the center of attention, so it makes sense that you would focus on yourself. You're probably wondering how you look, whether you sound smart, and if the class is enjoying your presentation. This is called attentional ego. But it doesn't have to be a big deal, like giving a presentation. It can be something small, like wearing a certain shirt to class. In 1996, researchers put a group of students into shirts emblazoned with the face of singer Barry White. The catch? The students didn't know they were wearing these shirts. They thought they were participating in a study about the effects of music on memory. Once the experiment was over, the students were asked to rate how noticeable they thought the shirt was. On average, they thought that everyone had noticed their Barry Manilow shirt. But in reality, almost no one had noticed. This is an example of the spotlight effect. The students were so focused on themselves and their own thoughts that they couldn't realize that no one else cared. There were other studies too. In one study, participants were asked to walk through a busy area of a university campus. Later, they were asked to recall everything they had seen. As you might expect, they remembered little about what was going on around them. In another study, radio hosts pretended to be DJs on a popular station and called local businesses to see how many people would hang up on them. Almost half of the calls were cut short, suggesting that people were not paying attention to anything the DJ said. So why should we care about the spotlight effect? Because it can have a real impact on our everyday lives. Many people experience the spotlight effect when they have to speak in front of a group. If you've ever given a speech or presentation, you probably know what I'm talking about. It's easy to get caught up in your own head and worry about how you look or what people think of you. But the truth is that most people are too busy worrying about themselves to pay attention to you. This doesn't mean that public speaking is easy. It's still scary for most people. But it does mean that you shouldn't take it too seriously. No one is judging you as harshly as you're judging yourself. Similarly, the spotlight effect can cause social anxiety. If you're constantly worried about what other people think of you, it can be hard to relax and enjoy yourself. But the truth is that most people aren't paying as much attention to you as you think. They're too busy worrying about themselves. Even when we're hanging out with friends, we can get caught up in our own heads and worry about what they think of us. But the truth is that they're probably not paying as much attention to you as you think. They're too busy worrying about themselves. Finally, the spotlight effect can come into play when we post things online. When we share our thoughts and feelings with the world, it's easy to get caught up in the feedback and try to please everyone. But the truth is that most people aren't paying as much attention to you as you think. They're too busy worrying about themselves. So the next time you're feeling embarrassed or anxious, remember that no one is watching. Most people are too busy worrying about themselves to pay attention to you. They're like zombies. Of course, this doesn't mean that you shouldn't care about how you act or what you do. You should always strive to be a good person and do the right thing. But it does mean that you shouldn't take yourself too seriously. We all make mistakes and do dumb things sometimes, but that's okay. Just laugh it off and move on. Don't let yourself get bogged down by the spotlight effect. So who do you think is experiencing the spotlight effect? Is it you? Maybe it's your friend who's always worried about what other people think? Tag a friend who overthinks everything in the comments below. And next time you feel embarrassed, remember, no one's watching. You got this. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, and I'll see you next time.